Welcome to the deep dive. We're really excited for this one.
Yeah, this should be fun.
We're taking a deep dive into Yuval Noah Harari's Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow.
Great book.
Have you read this one?
I have, yeah. It's thought-provoking for sure.
Yeah, it really gets you thinking about the future of humanity, right?
Totally.
Like, are we going to achieve immortality?
Let's...
Maybe even become like gods.
That's wild, right?
Ready to have your mind blown.
Let's do it.
Okay, so one of the things that really struck me about this book is how Harari frames these big, almost outlandish goals.
Right.
He doesn't just jump into immortality and divinity.
No. He starts by looking back.
Okay.
He argues that humanity has already overcome some massive problems.
Like what?
Well, he talks about famine, plague, and war.
Oh.
Huge existential threats, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But things that, at least in some parts of the world, are not the inevitable tragedies they once were.
I don't know about comparing surviving a software update to overcoming famine.
Okay, fair point, but think about it for a second.
Right.
Just a few centuries ago, famine was a constant threat in many places.
Yeah.
Harari paints a pretty grim picture of life in 17th century France, for example.
What?
People were eating cats, horse flesh, anything they could get their hands on, just to survive.
Wow.
And disease, forget about it.
Right.
Childhood diseases routinely wiped out a third of children before the 20th century.
It's hard to even imagine that kind of world.
It really is.
So Harari is basically saying that through science,
Economic progress.
global cooperation, right?
Exactly.
We've managed to turn these existential threats into...
Manageable challenges.
Okay, I get it.
But that raises a whole other set of questions.
Like, what happens next?
Yeah, what do we do now that we're not constantly on the brink of starvation or a pandemic?
Where do we go from here?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because Harari argues that we're setting our sights on even loftier goals.
Even loftier.
Immortality, bliss, even divinity.
Wait, divinity? Isn't that a bit, I don't know, a bit much?
It might sound far-fetched,
It kind of does.
but consider this. People like Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal,
Okay.
he's investing heavily in life extension technologies.
Really?
Yeah, the idea is to literally fight death.
What if he succeeds?
Right. Imagine a world where living to 150 becomes the norm.
Wow.
Think about what that would do to our societal structures.
Yeah, good luck explaining to your grandkids why you're on your fourth marriage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But seriously, though, the implications for family dynamics,
Social structures?
all of that, it's huge, right?
Totally.
And what about happiness?
What about it?
Harari suggests that happiness might just be a biochemical trick.
Interesting.
He uses this really powerful analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Picture the euphoria of scoring the winning goal in the World Cup final, right?
Yeah, can't beat that feeling.
But Harari argues that the feeling isn't really about the achievement itself.
Oh.
It's about the flood of chemicals in your brain.
Yeah. The brain chemistry. Exactly.
So if happiness is just biochemistry, could we engineer it?
Well, he brings up some examples of how we're already doing that.
Oh, how so?
With drugs like Ritalin and antidepressants.
Interesting.
And not just for medical reasons.
Good, enhancing performance, even in the military.
It's kind of a mind-blowing concept, right?
It really makes you think about what happiness really is.
It does.
And whether we're simply masking problems instead of addressing their root causes.
Yeah, that's a big question, right?
Huge.
What are the long-term consequences of a society that's reliant on chemical happiness?
Exactly.
And as if all of that wasn't enough to make you question everything you thought you knew,
Right.
Harari dives into the idea of free will,
Oh, this is a good one.
suggesting that it might be a complete myth,
Wow.
debunked by neuroscience.
He doesn't hold back, does he?
No, he doesn't.
So what's the evidence against free will?
He cites experiments where brain activity shows decisions being made before we're even consciously aware of them.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty wild, right?
It is, yeah. It has huge implications for how we understand ourselves, our legal systems, everything.
So you're telling me that agonizing decision I made to get a third slice of cake was already baked into my brain?
Maybe.
But seriously, where does personal responsibility fit into all of this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
It challenges the very foundation of how we view ourselves and our actions.
And it leads us to an even bigger question, I think.
Okay, I'm listening.
What truly shapes our world?
That's a big one.
It is, and that's where Harari introduces this concept of intersubjective reality.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I'm going to need you to break that down for me.
Sure.
What exactly is intersubjective reality?
Well, think about things like money, nations, corporations.
Right.
They exist because we collectively agree that they exist. They're
Right.
not rooted in some objective physical reality, right?
Hmm.
Harari even uses the example of the Soviet Union.
Okay.
It ceased to exist not because of a war or a natural disaster,
But because,
but because people stopped believing in it.
wow, so you're saying our shared beliefs literally have the power to reshape the world.
In a way, yeah.
That's both fascinating and a little terrifying, don't you think?
It definitely makes you think about the power of the stories we tell ourselves
It does.
and how those stories can shape our understanding of the world, even if they have no basis in objective reality.
Okay, so we've got immortality, bliss, divinity, free will, intersubjective reality.
A lot to unpack, right?
We're just getting started.
Let's keep going.
But we'll pick up right where we left off in part 2 of our deep dive into Homo Deus.
Can't wait.
See you there.
See you then. It's like, what is reality, even?
Right. And speaking of stories, Harari introduces this new one that's gaining traction.
All right.
It's called dateism.
Gaydism.
Yeah, dateism.
That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It kind of does, right?
Yeah.
But it's a philosophy, and it's becoming increasingly influential.
Where? Mostly.
Especially in the tech world. Dateism basically says that the universe, it's all about data flows.
Data flows, okay.
And our value as humans is determined by how well we process information.
So instead of judging a book by its cover, we should be judging it by its bits and bytes.
Basically.
That's a pretty different way of looking at the world.
It is. And it raises all sorts of questions about, the future of human values and beliefs.
Yeah, like what?
Well, think about how Google already seems to know us better than we know ourselves.
Yeah, that's a little creepy.
Right. Imagine if that trend continues and algorithms become the ultimate authority on, well, everything.
Like what kinds of things?
Our health, our relationships, our careers, you name it.
I don't know about an algorithm choosing my next romantic partner.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm ready for that either.
But I do see how data can be incredibly powerful.
For sure.
Especially in areas like healthcare.
Right. Harari mentions Google flu trends.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to predict outbreaks based on search data.
That's amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
But it brings up those ethical concerns about privacy and autonomy.
Is it worth sacrificing our privacy for the potential benefits of data-driven healthcare?
Right. Where do we draw the line?
And what about the whole idea of free will? If algorithms know us better than we know ourselves, does that even mean our choices are predetermined?
That's a good question.
Are we really just puppets of our data?
Harari suggests that our belief in free will, it might be more of a liberal myth than an objective reality.
A liberal myth.
And he points back to those neuroscience experiments.
The ones we talked about earlier.
Exactly, the ones that suggest our brains are making decisions before we're even consciously aware of them.
So maybe that third slice of cake wasn't entirely my fault.
Could be.
But seriously, if our brains are already making choices for us, what does that mean for our sense of self and agency?
Yeah, I mean, do we even have a stable, unified self?
Or is that just another story we tell ourselves?
Another good question.
It is, right. And if our sense of self is more fluid than we thought, what does that mean for, the whole liberal project built around individual rights and freedoms?
It's a huge question.
It is. It goes to the heart of how we organize society.
And understand our place in the world.
Right, exactly.
If the individual self is more of a myth than a reality, what happens to the ideas of individual responsibility, autonomy, purpose?
And how does dateism fit into all of this? Does it offer a new way of understanding the self, or does it completely undermine the idea of the individual?
It's interesting because dateism, unlike humanism, doesn't place the individual at the center of the universe.
It doesn't.
Nope. Instead, it sees the universe as a flow of information.
Okay.
And individual humans are simply nodes in that network.
So instead of being the stars of the show, we're just supporting actors in the grand drama of data.
Kind of a humbling thought, isn't it?
It is. It also makes me wonder about the role of things like governments and institutions in a datist world.
Really?
Well, if data is king, do we even need those traditional power structures anymore?
Harari suggests that datism could actually lead to a decline in the power of traditional political institutions.
Really?
Yeah, he argues that if data is seen as the ultimate source of authority,
Then algorithms could potentially replace human decision makers.
in many areas of life, including government,
So instead of voting for a president, we'll be voting for an algorithm.
it's a possibility, and it raises all sorts of questions about how we ensure accountability, and fairness
Exactly.
in a system where algorithms are making the big decisions.
Like, who controls these algorithms? Who benefits from them? How do we prevent them from perpetuating existing biases and inequalities?
All important questions.
It seems like we need to think carefully about how to integrate data and algorithms into our decision-making processes
For sure.
without losing sight of those fundamental human values like fairness and justice.
Absolutely. And Harari reminds us that data alone can't answer those big ethical questions.
It can't.
Nope. We still need values, beliefs, stories.
To guide our choices.
Even in a data-driven world.
So we can't just hand over the reins to the algorithms and expect everything to work out perfectly.
Not necessary.
There's still a role for human judgment and wisdom.
I think so. Okay, good.
And that brings us to another interesting parallel that Harari draws
Okay.
between dataism and traditional religions.
Wait, are you saying dataism is a religion?
He doesn't go so far as to say it's a religion in the traditional sense,
Yeah.
but he does point out some striking similarities.
Like what?
Well, both dataism and traditional religions,
Yeah.
they offer their own interpretations of reality
Okay.
and have their own sets of beliefs and practices.
Okay.
For example, dataism views the universe as a flow of information,
Right.
and it values whatever contributes to the processing of that information.
So instead of praising God or meditating on our inner selves, we'll be spending our Sundays optimizing our data flows.
Something like that.
That's a pretty different kind of spiritual practice.
It is. Dataism really challenges a lot of our fundamental assumptions, doesn't it? About the world and our place in it.
It does.
And it's not just about abstract philosophical ideas.
No.
It has real-world implications for how we live our lives, how we govern ourselves, even how we understand ourselves as human beings.
Totally.
And that's where things get even more mind-blowing, because Harari doesn't stop at exploring the rise of dataism.
Oh, no.
He goes on to speculate about the potential for technology to actually merge with us,
Merge with us. How?
leading to the emergence of a new kind of being.
Okay, this is getting good. What kind of being?
Homo Deus.
Homo Deus.
Yep, Homo Deus.
That sounds like something straight out of a superhero comic book.
It kind of does, right?
Are we talking super strength, telepathy, immortality?
Harari doesn't give us a specific blueprint
Okay.
for what Homo Deus might look like.
Hey.
But he suggests that this new being would transcend the limitations of our current biology,
Okay.
merging with technology to achieve, godlike powers.
Godlike powers. Wow.
He points out that we're already seeing the early stages of this merging,
Right.
with things like brain implants to treat PTSD and depression.
Interesting.
Imagine if those technologies become more advanced and more widespread.
So are we talking about uploading our consciousness into computers, becoming immortal cyborgs, or something even more radical?
It's a possibility.
Wow.
And it raises these really profound ethical questions
Like what?
about what it means to be human.
Okay.
If we can enhance our intelligence, our emotions, even our lifespan with technology, where do we draw the line?
That's a tough one.
It is. And who gets to decide what enhancements are acceptable?
Right.
It seems like we're on the verge of a technological revolution that could fundamentally change what it means to be human.
Yeah,
And it's both exciting and a little terrifying, isn't it?
it is for sure. Where do we even begin to wrap our heads around all of this?
Well, Harari suggests that we need to start by being honest with ourselves
About what?
about the potential benefits and risks of these technologies. We need to have open and honest conversations
Okay.
about the values we want to guide our choices.
I like that.
And we need to be proactive
Yeah.
in shaping the development and use of these technologies
Proactive? How?
to ensure that they serve humanity,
Okay.
not the other way around.
That's a good point.
So it's not just about passively accepting whatever technological advancements come our way.
We have a say in this.
We do. It's about actively shaping the future we want to create.
I like that idea, but what does that look like in a practical sense?
Well, it starts with education.
Education.
Yeah, we need to foster a deeper understanding of these technologies among the general public.
Okay.
Not everyone needs to become a programmer,
Right.
but we all need to be more aware of how these technologies work.
And how they're being used.
Exactly, and what the potential implications are.
So instead of just blindly accepting the latest gadget or social media platform,
Yeah,
we need to be more critical.
we do. Ask questions. Like, how is this technology impacting my life?
Who benefits from my data?
Right. What are the potential downsides?
It's about becoming more tech savvy.
Yes.
Not just in terms of using the tools,
What?
but in terms of understanding the forces that are shaping those tools.
And the impact they have on our lives.
Exactly.
And it's not just about individual awareness, is it? We need to have these broader societal conversations about these issues, right?
Absolutely.
Like, how do we create policies and regulations that ensure these technologies are used ethically and responsibly?
How do we protect privacy in a world where data is everything?
Exactly.
Those are crucial questions.
They are. We need to think about how to build safeguards into these technologies from the ground up, rather than trying to play catch-up after they've already been deployed.
Makes sense.
And we need to create democratic processes that allow us to collectively shape the development and use of these technologies.
I agree.
Harari talks about the potential for dataism to evolve into a new kind of religion,
Oh, yeah.
one that worships data and algorithms.
So if that happens, won't it be even harder to challenge the power of these technologies?
That's a real concern, because if we start to see algorithms as infallible,
Or even godlike.
right, it will be really difficult to hold them accountable.
That's why it's so important to demystify these technologies, to understand that they're ultimately created by humans,
Right.
with all our inherent biases and limitations.
So it's not just about the technology itself,
It's about...
it's about the stories we tell ourselves about technology.
Okay.
If we see it as our savior or our destroyer, that will inevitably shape how we use it.
That's a powerful point.
It is, right?
Yeah.
We need to be careful not to fall into the trap of technological determinism.
Technological determinism.
Yeah, the idea that technology dictates our future.
I see.
Technology is a tool.
Okay.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or ill.
Right.
It's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
So it's not about rejecting technology.
Or embracing it blindly.
It's about...
It's about finding a way to live with it thoughtfully, ethically,
Yeah.
and maybe even playfully.
Playfully. I like that.
Too often, I think, these conversations about technology become very serious and kind of doom-laden.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's also room for curiosity, creativity, even humor, right?
Absolutely.
We don't want to be so afraid of the future that we forget to enjoy the present.
Exactly.
And who knows, maybe by approaching these challenges with a more playful mindset,
Yeah.
we'll be able to come up with more creative and human-centered solutions.
Harari reminds us that the future is not predetermined.
It's not.
It's a story that we're all writing together.
I like that.
And while there are certainly risks and challenges ahead, there's also enormous potential for positive change.
So let's write a good story.
Okay.
One where technology empowers us, connects us, helps us create a more just and sustainable world.
I'm in, are you?
Absolutely, I'm in. It feels like we're at this crossroads.
I guess see that.
On one hand, we've got this incredible potential, right? To solve some of humanity's biggest challenges.
With technology.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand,
it's tricky.
It is. We risk creating a world that's even more unequal, more dehumanizing.
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk for sure.
So how do we navigate this? Where do we even begin?
Well, Harari, he keeps coming back to this idea that we're not just passive bystanders in this whole technological revolution thing.
Okay.
We've got choices to make.
We do.
Both individually and collectively.
Okay.
And those choices, they're going to shape the future we create, one way or another.
Okay, so we need to be proactive. I get that.
Yeah.
But what does that look like, practically speaking?
Well, for starters, education is huge.
Education.
Yeah, we need people to understand this stuff.
This tech stuff, you mean?
All of it. How it works, how it's being used, the implications.
So we all need to become coding ninjas?
Not necessarily.
Okay, good.
But being more aware, asking questions.
Like what kinds of questions?
How's this tech impacting my life? Who's benefiting from my data? What are the downsides?
Right, so it's about being more tech-savvy.
Exactly.
But not just in terms of using the tools.
No, it's deeper than that.
It's about understanding the forces behind them.
Yeah, and how those forces impact our lives.
And we need to have these bigger conversations too, right? Societal conversations.
Absolutely. Can't just be individuals figuring this out on their own.
Right. How do we create policies, regulations, all that to make sure these technologies are used ethically? Responsibly.
Huge question.
It is. And how do we even protect privacy in a world where data is everything?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question right now.
It feels like it.
We got to figure out how to build safeguards into these technologies from the very beginning.
Instead of playing catch-up later.
Exactly.
And democratic processes,
Yeah.
right, to give people a say in how this stuff develops.
Totally.
Harari talks about the potential for dataism to become a new kind of religion.
Yeah, I remember that part.
One that worships data and algorithms.
Which is kind of scary when you think about it.
It is. If we start seeing algorithms as infallible, godlike even.
It's going to be tough to hold them accountable.
Exactly. That's why we need to demystify these technologies, right?
2%.
Remember that they're created by humans.
With all our flaws and biases.
All of them.
So it's not just the technology itself.
It's the stories we tell about it.
Yeah, if we see tech as our savior or our destroyer, that's going to shape how we use it.
Powerful stuff.
It is. Got to be careful not to fall into that trap of technological determinism.
That technology dictates our future.
Exactly. It's a tool.
Like a hammer.
Sure, you can build a house with it, or you can, smash something.
It's all in how you use it.
Up to us to decide.
So it's not about rejecting technology.
Or blindly embracing it either.
It's about living with it thoughtfully, ethically.
And maybe even playfully, remember?
Oh, yeah, playfully. Gotta have some fun with it too, right?
Absolutely. These conversations can get pretty heavy.
They can.
Yeah.
But we don't want to be so scared of the future that we forget to enjoy the present.
Right, and who knows, maybe a little playfulness will spark some creativity.
Lead to better solutions.
Human-centered solution.
Exactly. Harari reminds us that the future isn't set in stone.
It's a story we're writing.
All of us.
Together.
And there are risks, for sure, challenges.
But also huge potential for good.
So let's write a good story then.
I'm in.
Me too. A story where tech empowers us, connects us, helps build a better world, a more just world.
That's the kind of future I want to be a part of.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, diving into Harari's HOMO DEUS.
We have.
Immortality, dataism, AI, HOMO DEUS. It's a lot.
Mind-bending stuff.
It is, and it's okay to feel a little overwhelmed.
Definitely.
But the important thing is that we're asking these questions.
Having these conversations.
Exactly, because the future is in our hands.
Our choices matter.
They do. The choices we make today, they're going to shape the world of tomorrow.
No pressure, right.
Right. So, what stood out to you from this deep dive? What are your thoughts on a future where humans might achieve divinity or merge with machines? What steps can you take in your own life to make sure technology is used for good?
Lots to think about.
These are just a few of the questions we encourage you to keep exploring, keep thinking about.
Stay curious.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure.